So
that's been great, Rich. Thank you very much. Thank you.
All right. So our next speaker, we have Michael Oborne. And so Michael, of course, many things, but most best known as the Mission Planner lead developer. So over to you, Michael, for an update on Mission Planner.
Thank you, Tridge. It's great to be presenting here. Okay, so everybody pretty much knows who I am, so I will pretty much get straight into it. A lot of my talk will be live demos, so very little in terms of slides today, but lots of live demos. Okay, so to basically recap on what's happened over the past year with the new features and the updates, basically one of the big changes is obviously targeting a lot more cross-platform things. So one of those targets was GStreamer, and I actually excluded off the list, but GDAL as well. So GStreamer is now Windows, Linux and Android cross-platform. GDAL is Windows and Android. Linux is still the missing component with that one. There's been a work in progress on NEMA 2000. So if you've ever worked in marine at all, NEMA 2000 is a very prevalent CAN protocol. Now, the one, basically going back to one of Tridge's chats yesterday, log browse and the data flash file extraction. So I'll just very, very quickly demo that one. So it won't be living in this location in Mission Planner, but purely for this demo, I had to put something somewhere to get it. So I'll just open a log. So if you wanted to use it in the current beta Mission Planner, right click, extract files, pick a location where you want to save it, click OK, and it's extracting the files. So if we go to desktop test, and you can see sys, and we got our storage.bin from the file. So storage.bin.
Fantastic.
Yep. So that's pretty much live in Mission Planner beta now. You can use it now if you want to. Okay.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Michael.
All good. So that's a very quick demo of that one. Okay, flight data tuning, left axis, right axis. I think Randy was the one that requested this. I have it in log browser, but I didn't have it in. So similar to the log browser, if you left click something, it adds it to the left axis. So if I left click pitch and right click roll and roll, basically it'll split the axes and put stuff on the left axis versus the right axis. So
thank you.
Pretty much that one. UAVionics ADSB interface. So this was actually a pull request from UAVionics. So basically there is a new tab in here, transponder. If you're into the commercial flights and need ADSB out. I'm pretty sure people like Tom use this one, and I'm sure there's plenty of other vendors out there as well, which would you be using the UAVionics stuff. So one just general update, high latency 2 update, so better support SATCOMs. So Mission Planner will now recognize a high latency 2 message as effectively a heartbeat, which means you should be able to use all the basic stuff that comes with over SATCOMs and high latency links. I would say there's still some issues probably around waypoint upload, but in terms of a viewing only platform, it would certainly be capable now. So log browse, helper messages. So this added actually came from Peter Hall. So basically this is just when you open a log browse session and you have servo outputs. So if we go RC out as an example, if I go to C1, it now puts a tag ground steering, C2 disabled, throttle on 3, mainsail on 4. So just a few little helping things. So if I graph ground steering, basically, and let's turn off events. So basically you can see it's RC out channel 1, and you can see the function it was assigned. So that pull request was from Peter Hall.
So very useful, that is. Yes.
So that supports RC out, RC in, Barrow, GPS and MAG. With the Barrow, GPS and MAG, what it's actually showing is decoding the dev ID for those instance numbers. So very helpful for the quick glance at a log to see which sensors which, if you want to get into that deep level of detail. HUD text or icon, again, another pull request. So by default, Mission Plan loads with the text version. If you basically show icons, it switches to an icon version. If I was connected to a vehicle, there would also be a battery level indicator over here as well. But
Does it remember that sort of a setting for if you restart Mission Planner?
Yep, let me just confirm that. I'm pretty sure that one is remembered. And yes, it's remembered.
Great. That's one of the comments that I've had feedback from some partners is they like to lay out Mission Planner in a particular way.
Yep.
And it doesn't necessarily remember all of the layout decisions, like breaking out, the HUD and this sort of thing.
Yeah, breaking out the HUD would never be remembered. Like in terms of size, like this size, other sizes, they're definitely remembered. But I could remember breaking out the HUD. It's just I've never been no one's ever asked for it. So I've never done it because there's no restriction from doing that. So because one of the other things is you can actually break out some of these tabs in here as well, which isn't work
and the parameter control and things. I find it really useful when I'm using Mission Planner to break out the parameter control.
Yeah, so you can break out basically any tab like that full parameter list, go to another tab and still have the full parameter list visible. But yeah, so that's just for those that don't know, I've shown it many times before, double click it and it pops it out. Okay, so that's that one. CITL, dev or stable and cross-platform CITL. So I think this is a request from Utridge to be able to basically provide a dev or stable and when I say cross-platform, so this is one of those caveat ones. Cross-platform on common architectures on Windows, Linux, and Android. The Android stipulation being it has to be below Android 10 due to basically execution restrictions on directories, a long, complicated story. So basically, I've tested, as an example, on Linux, I've tested this on a Raspberry Pi, being ARM64, and of course, Linux x86, and Windows, of course, is Windows. So just some extra cross-platform stuff in terms of CITL. So next, Altitude Angel update refresh. So basically there's been a pull request that went in probably about a week ago, which updates the entire Altitude Angel interface to be a lot more dynamic and show a lot more information about the actual restrictions over the area. So this pretty much, I think it's probably been 1 or 2 years since the last real update to Altitude Angel, and this was provided by them. So basically it takes the full capability of what's available to them in-house, if you understand. Okay, next, config initial params. So in my last chat, basically this was one of those special things, community contributed plugin originally, where you pushed Alt-A and you type in your battery count, your prop size, and it would calculate estimated PIDs based on some certain metrics. So this has now gone mainstream. It's now one of the main tabs in Mission Planner, and it can basically be used without any special plugins. It is now just shipped by default inside Mission Planner. And I was just going to quickly show that whenever. Okay. Oh. Just bring this back over here. So basically initial parameter set. So this used to be an external plugin. It's now basically included inside Mission Planner by default. So again, this big disclaimer about reading tuning. I'm sure there's a lot of stuff on tuning during all these talks. So if anyone can see any issues with it from one of these talks, then please let me know and we can certainly try to make it better for everyone.
I'd love to do equivalent to that page for quad planes actually, because people often have a lot of trouble getting the initial config, and I think very similar concept with propeller size and or overall mass of vehicle or something like that. Yeah. I think that would be really handy.
Yeah, certainly, yeah. Certainly could add something like that. And I know you've been asking about plugins, Tritch, which I plan on going a little bit further on in this chat, but that's a good example of something that started as a plugin and now went mainstream.
Yeah, that was from Basti, wasn't it? So I was thinking maybe I should look at Basti's PR and how he did that and see if I can make an equivalent plugin for quad planes.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, so it's all like even from the plugin state, like there is a difference between the plugin and this version, but you could do this all from a plugin. So, but yeah, I'll touch on that a little bit later. Okay, so the next one, uploader external flash support. So Andy Piper was in on this one as well, basically being the test dummy to make sure it works, and it's now being tested in Mission Planner for external flash support to support those boards with much larger external flash. Lots more plugin examples. So I plan on going a little bit more in depth with some of the plugins, and I'll do maybe a little demo of one on how to do some customizations using a plugin to either remove stuff from the interface or maybe add stuff to the interface. And of course, there's been tons of other stuff going on as well. Just as an example, all the drone cans done, FD can, yeah, the list goes on. Okay, so basically my first main topic is going to be on customization, and basically these are the points that I plan on addressing. Basically the config customization. The config in this situation could mean, as Tridge was mentioning, about basically size of the screen, specific things showing or not showing. And basically it's just if the user were to install Mission Planner fresh, basically the initial config they would get. Say you wanted to tick a box in the planner screen, basically it's really about hard coding that in the config, custom config file, so it can be shipped in a known state. Same with themes. Basically, if you wanted to make a custom theme and basically shipping it with that theme to the customer just by adding an extra file. Display view. In the setup and config tabs, basically the ability to hide or show tabs at your will. So at the moment, Mission Planner, most people knows that it has the standard view, the advanced view, and a custom view. Custom doesn't technically do anything, and that's because there is no custom defined. But this, I'll basically touch on this on how you can customize this to say show or show or hide specific tabs. If you didn't want the user seeing the Excel calibration tab, for an example, that's a bit able to be done with the display view stuff. Logos, so basically when you start up, and when you start up to basically display your logo, and again the app title is all changeable as well. So these are all stock in Mission Planner right now, and I will demo some of them pretty much now. So okay, so basically stock Mission Planner at the moment, nothing too special. We're at CMAC, nothing you'd expect to see out of the different. I have this fence loaded for a bit of a demo later on, so we'll just ignore that for now, and I'll just close this. Okay, so what I'm going to do is we're going to go, so if you're looking for the links to the files I'm going to reference, they're all available on the internet at the moment. So this is an example of the custom config file, basically just the config. As an example, this is just setting quick view defaults. So as it boots up, the defaults for the quick view will be set to specific things: altitude units, meters, user parameters, default altitude of 10 meters, the tabs to show on the panel down the bottom left-hand corner, flight data, show airports, yes, show no flight zone, TFRs, false, that's actually irrelevant now. And it always starts maximized. And this one here, this config was actually designed to run on a Raspberry Pi by default. So that there is to do with rendering options, basically. So that's a very big, well, quick example of that. And what I'll do is I'll flip to one of the next files. So the next one is the theme file. Again, another XML file. So this basically just defines all the colors. So text box background color, the text colors, background button top, bottom. So most Mission Planner buttons are actually transition colors between the top and the bottom of the button. So basically you can set your own color codes, progress bar top and bottom, banner colors, and many other options. So to create this file, the theme file, what you would do is you would open Mission Planner, go to config, and go to basically the custom, and basically everything you just saw is in this list here. So you can basically pick your own color. So what we'll do is we'll create a copy. We'll do test 1, 2, 3. We'll click OK, save and apply. Okay. So basically we just saved a config file. So what I'm going to do is now I'm going to go find that. So assuming I customized all the colors and saved it, we're going to go to basically my documents and go to the mission planner folder. And in here, you will find our test 1, 2, 3 MP user theme. So basically this is just a copy of that XML file that we saw on the internet a second ago, and just with all the custom color codes filled out already. So now, so I'll just get rid of that for a second, and I'll just close that for a second. So that's an example of that. And Zoom has the title bar in the wrong place. Okay, so the next is, so we've done config, we've had a look at theme, and next we're going to look at display view. So display view, again, online copy of the version. So basically, this is display GPS order, display hardware IDs, display ADSB, display simulation, display terminal, display donut, help. So as you can see, basically this is an option for hiding the help tab, the terminal tab, the simulation tab, the quick view, flight RAD, advanced actions, simple action tab, gauges tab, status tab, servo tab. The list goes on. As you can see, it's a fairly extensive list. So depending on what you wanted to customize, remove by default for your customer, you could basically hide the motor test tab as an example, hide the Bluetooth tab, hide the parachute tab. As you can see in this config, I'm actually showing you the Bluetooth and parachute are hidden, the motor test is enabled, and then a lot of the others are all disabled. SIC radio disabled, battery monitor disabled, CAN disabled, compass motor calc disabled. So this config was actually sent to some students. So basically it was locked down to be very minimalist and yeah, just very minimalist and not that many options available, so they can't cause too many issues.
So how do you distribute that? Can you sort of give them a new MSI Mission Planner with this config? Can you sort of rebake Mission Planner? How do you distribute it?
So basically what you would do is so basically the file, so of the 3 files I showed you, this is the 3 files that I plan on demoing. So this is just a copy of those files, and the trick here is custom config.xml, custom display view, and custom MP sys theme. So that's the config, display, and the theme. So what I'm going to do is I'll start Mission Planner. You can see it currently looks like, well, it's just having a holiday on my second screen. Quite literally. We'll just start it again. Okay, so this is what it currently looks like. And what we're going to do is I'm going to copy those 3 config files into the directory. So we'll do these 3 here. I'll just paste them in. So this is just the Mission Planner install directory. And to answer your pre-baking file, you would have to create a new MSI to include these files, yes. But I do include all the stuff to actually create MSIs of Mission Planner. So, and what I'm also going to do is, just because we're at it, the last 2 items on this list was logo and title. And basically, so our logo, I'm just going to use this logo for the time being. Logo 2, which is just a smaller version of the same logo. So, and then our logo basically is going to be called QPilot GCS. So as you saw last time, it started up as Mission Planner standard. So I'm just going to copy all these three more files in here, the 3 logo files and the 3 custom files. So, and now what I'm going to do is we'll go back, we'll start Mission Planner again. So as you can see, you saw the splash screen had the QPilot logo. We now have the QPilot logo up here as well. And you can see that the action tab has disappeared off our quick view down here. So now we don't have the action tab. So we've only got the pre-flight checklist, quick, messages. So the config file I just loaded, like I said, was designed for students, and these students were required to always use RC control. So there is no real ability to do too much in terms of sending a command via Mavlink from Mission Planner itself. So that's part of the reason for that lockdown there. And then plan, again, default, there's not too much going on here. Setup, so there will be a lot less tabs in here, apart from I don't actually think that worked. Let me just restart that again, because I think I might have actually broken it because I have a pre-existing config when I was testing before doing the live demo. Okay, so this is what it actually should have been looking like. So basically our quick view, our action tab down here is missing. We've got, again, only tabs. The color themes, as you can see, switch to blue. We go to plan tab, again, color theme switch to blue. Everything else in here is pretty much the same. And then setup tab, again, so the optional hardware tab actually has no extra options at the moment. We haven't installed firmware. So that's the students could upgrade, but they basically didn't have options for any other tabs. And then in here again, only the planner tabs visible, no full parameters and no other options. And simulation was included in their setup. So basically they had access to the simulation tab as well. So that pretty much covers most of the customization features. Now, if you wanted to pre-bake these files. So I showed you how to generate the theme view. The display view is a little bit more trickier. You start from the reference file for that one. So the reference file I'm listing here, and then basically show, basically update true or false, depending on if you want it to show. There is no quick way or GUI editor for this file. It is purely manual. And then the theme, so themes have an editor, display view is manual, and then config. So if you wanted to generate your own config, basically this config file is exactly the same as the one or Mission Planner would save in the Mission Planner folder. So I'm just going to open the QPilot GCS one, which again, so basically this is the two config files. So this is the one that was used when Mission Planner actually run. And basically it saves all these settings like the log directory and all these other things. So if you had if you were shipping Mission Planner on a device and you wanted to use a custom log directory, you could put that in the custom config file over here, and basically it would default to that directory on the client device that you ship with it. And then there's, if you wanted to define the default map view instead of Google satellite maps, the default tuning graph selection, default altitude, default home location, if that was a requirement. And then again, like the default quick view stuff, which you will notice a lot of this stuff in here is actually exactly the same as it was over here, because that's where it originated from. And again, so this is also, you'll see a display view in here. So there's actually two different ways to do the display view. You can do it in the config file, or you can do it as the display view file I was showing you a second ago. So things like this, the flight splitter. So that's the distance between how big the HUD is on the screen, the default coordinate system. So Flight Planner coord mouse. So it's currently in geographic, which means lat long, and many other options. So as an example, if you wanted to do something specific, you would basically just open Mission Planner, say I wanted the default radius as 90, default alt is 40, and then if I were to exit Mission Planner, so basically this file just updated itself. Our default alt is now 400, loiter radius, so waypoint radius is now 90 meters, default altitude is 40 meters. And knowing that, I could now just copy these over here, and that would be the default for the custom config. Okay, so
nice. Yep.
So that's for the shipping. That defines pretty much most of the config, display, and coloring theme, and also logos. So logo.txt sets the title. So when I start this, you would have noticed that the title bar says QPilot GCS. That obviously I could change that to say anything and it will start up with that name. And then the two logos. So the logo without this one here is the splash screen logo. And then logo 2 is the one up near the connect button. This one here needs to be scaled appropriately to fit in the area of the bar, whereas the logo one, this one's automatically scaled to fit automatically. So that makes that a little bit easier. So that is pretty much customization in Mission Planner as it stands now. Now, what I'll do is I'll sidetrack a tiny bit just to directly answer Tridge's question. So if you wanted to create an MSI, Mission Planner comes with a MSI folder. Inside this folder, you will see installer.bat. So what you would need to do is basically run installer.bat, which basically runs a program called Wix on the out. So what you need to do is build Mission Planner in release mode, then run this basically file, run it. It will do some stuff, clean up the environment, and then after that, you'll have to run create. So basically, the first one just presets up the environment, sets up the installer file, and then this one actually creates the file. So if I click create right now, this would create Mission Planner. This is how I do releases for Mission Planner. So this is the task flow, and this would currently create that MSI right there, which of course.
So then if you wanted to sign it, you use one of the standard MSI signing tools.
Yes. Yeah.
Yep.
If you want to distribute it as signed package, yeah. Like I know none of my MSIs would be signed. So yeah. But yeah, it's all the case. So the zip file, both the zip file and the MSI originate from these scripts, and these are checked into GitHub. The one thing you do need is you need Wix installed. So I currently have Wix 3.311 installed, and that's basically the installer creator to create the MSI installer in this case. Okay, so that's how you do an MSI. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is we'll move on to the next, my last and final tab, but will probably take quite a while, is plugins. So this, if you remember last year's speech, this is an exact copy and paste of last year's tab. Difference is this time I'm going to go into more detail and probably give you a quick example of how you would create a plugin. So this is definitely a live coding demo, and expect it to go well, of course.
Like all live demos.
Yes, exactly. So what we're going to do is I'm going to start by going to the Mission Planner source directory. So in Mission Planner source directory, in the plugins directory, there is a whole bunch of examples. I actually created an example. So this is one thing we're going to go through this example right here. I created it earlier today. And what this does is it removes menu items. So again, on the customization theme, if I were to go here and right click, so as we can see, we've got this big long menu. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to get rid of half those options in the tab using a plugin. So obviously the plugin's a good way of just evaluating what you want to do, and then obviously if you find the plugin useful or good, put in a pull request and we can basically make it mainstream. So it's really about just trying to get more developers in on the deal. So one thing I'm just going to do is I'm just going to quickly clean up my environment from the other demos. So let's go this one, let's go custom. Just delete those 3 files, delete logo, delete those files, and we're good to go. Back to the source and back to the plugins directory. So I'm just going to start Visual Studio. And what we're going to do is we're going to look through this file. So what I'll do is plugin structure. The basic plugin structure looks like this. So it's just a C# file, basically inheriting from a base class called plugin, some predefined values, and then we've got these 3 functions or methods, depending on which language you want to use. Our init, our loaded, our exit. And there is actually another one called Loop, which is not available in this one. So let's go to this one here. And there we go. This one has Loop as well. So this is a more filled out one, again, inheriting from the base class, name, version, author. So when we use the plugin viewer, the plugin manager, you can actually see this stuff reported in it. All these functions return true. And so init, loaded, loop, and exit. So they're the basic functions of any plugin. And as you can see, they're all overridden. So you don't actually have to define any of those if you didn't want to. You could just define init, override init, and all the rest would basically be from the base inherited class. So this is an example here. Very simple. The only thing this does is changes where the SRTM base URL is. It's currently, so this would be shipping with Mission Planner, but because it's returning false on init and loaded and exit, it won't actually be running at all. So any return of false during init or loaded will basically stop loading the plugin. So to go, I'm just quickly prep the environment over on my second screen. Okay, so what does this plugin do? Our menu cleanup plugin. So what we're going to do is we're going to clean up that menu. So at the moment, this plugin is disabled because we're in it, we're returning false. Let's just change that back to true. I'll just quickly save that. And we'll switch to Visual Studio instead of Notepad++. And one extra thing I'll do is, so one of the, if you're really good at writing error-free code, then you can just use the text editor. But if you want the easy way out, what I would suggest doing is, so plugins, basically we'll create add a new item, we'll create a class, we'll create example demo. So that'll create a new file. So we just created a new file. So one of the things that I was talking about a second ago, we've got to inherit from our base class. So all that there. So basically we got, so the things that we do need to define are name, version, author, init, loaded, and exit, because that's an abstract class. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to cheat. We're going to go back to the first example and we're going to copy and paste that. And we're going to get rid of the SRTM because that's not relevant. Okay, so I'm going to change all these to true so our plugin actually executes. So basically that's example demo. We've got our plugin, we've got our base class. So the way Mission Planner works is it must, your initial entry point must be inheriting from this class. So Mission Planner will scan the created assembly, the created DLL, and basically it must inherit from this class, and then it'll run through this, all this code. So what we could do, so let's just go custom message box show. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to say, let's just do the classic hello world. Sorry, we now have a hello world. And okay, hello world. And we've got it in our, basically, at the moment, we've got it set to compile in. So when we compile this, it's going to compile into Mission Planner. But while you're during testing, it is quite often easier to compile it in. Once you finish debugging, then obviously you can ship this .cs file directly to whoever you want to. So I'm just going to quickly run that. So we should basically, during init, we should get a hello world text box pop out of nowhere. And Mission Planner is compiling. Takes a little bit of time. Okay, it's started. Hello world. Okay, success number one. We now have some kind of user interacting response. So that plugin was just executed as part of the startup of Mission Planner. So let's go back to the demo. Okay, So now that we know
So
that,
was that modal? So was that waiting for that clicking OK, or would it have kept going and it just left that sitting there, but still launched?
that is actually a good question. Let's find out. It is actually modal. It's blocking the main UI.
Right.
I've got.
So you'd have to create a thread, presumably, if you didn't want it to be modal, or is there a non-modal version of that?
Yeah. So that's obviously blocking execution there. I would probably, well, what we could do is if we switch to a different message box, and then, because at the moment we're not setting a parent. So I'll just quickly try this. So this will be the default Windows message box instead of a Mission Planner customized theme box, but I have a feeling this will be UI blocking as well. And it showed up, and yes, it's UI blocking. So the trick with this is, yes, it's UI blocking, and probably the real catch there is because it's on the UI thread, I'm not sure if you're going to get a non-modal blocking version of that message box, is what I'm really trying to say. So basically, you would have to create a custom control. There's certainly, you could create a custom control which is non-modal, and that way would allow execution in the background. But this example is that message box is modal.
Mm-hmm. No worries.
So like I could progress. So like I could do something like this. This probably will fail epically, but let's find out. So that, the problem is Mission Planner started up on my other screen. So that did show, but because it's non-blocking, it actually, pretty sure it showed, blocked, and then left because it was, it's not actually running any function.
It was going out of scope. I mean, you'd have, isn't it? And then disappearing?
It's technically not going out of scope because the lifetime of the object wouldn't be terminated just yet. So this actually creates a thread in the background to run a separate process while displaying a progress to the user. So, but yeah, I'll digress on that one for the moment. So what we're going to do is we're going to use this as an example, the menu remove. So in loaded, you can define a loop rate. So as you can see, we're overriding loop here, and you can set how fast you want that loop running. By default, the default is 0, which means loop will not be executed.
Is that a float or integer? So you can do less than 1?
You can't do less than 1, but actually, it is pretty sure it is a float. Let me just lift this.
You might like something that happens just periodically, like every minute or something like that.
It is a float.
Or it is a float. So you could potentially run that, quite slowly.
Yeah. Obviously you could set it to 0.1 to run once every 10 seconds.
Yep.
And cast as a float. So what I'll do at the moment, I'll just set that as 3 seconds. No particular reason other than it sounds like a good number at this point in time. So what we're going to do is we're going to create a loop. So the loop, so override loop, again, lots of filling out autocode. I don't care about that. So let's go return true, just make it valid. Okay, so so what we're going to do now is all plugins have this element called host. Host basically has a list of these members, and it gives you control. So in terms of what it gives you access to, you have access to main form, which is the main Mission Planner form, so the main Mission Planner window. So a bad example would be this. So basically it would start the loop and then close the main form, which would effectively just exit Mission Planner. So what we've got here is we've got flight data, the map control on the flight data screen, the map control provider on the flight data screen, the right click menus on the HUD, the map, the current position of the right click on the flight data, a drawn polygon on the flight planner if you've drawn a polygon, again, the full map control on flight planner, the flight planner menu map, and then the flight planner menu map position. So where you can use this is basically if you were to add something to the right click map menus, you can use the position that it was triggered at as a lat long and use that. And then the last one is we have access to COM-port as well. So COM-port is the currently connected vehicle. So in here, you can access basically all the default mission planner stuff, get specific parameters, send RC overrides, send manual control. You can, lots of do arms, do arm, do action, do commands, all the normal mavlinky stuff. If that's basically get home position, get parameter list, get parameter polling, rally points, get the version, get a specific waypoint if you wanted to. Obviously, you'd have to follow the proper waypoint protocol, Mavlink waypoint protocol, to use that to its full extent. That can also be used, of course, to get fence and rally points. And then you've got some of the internal functions like read packet and read packet async. I would suggest not using those as they will mess, you will be stealing packets from the underlying subsystem, sending packets if you want to send a packet, and then a whole bunch of other stuff, set parameters, set waypoints, and set up signing, and UAVionics ping control if you want to set specific options to that. So this COM-port is your currently connected vehicle. Another one that you can actually use as well is host.mainform.com.instance. Let's just go main v2.instance.com-ports. Oh, hang on. COM-ports. Okay, so the difference between these two. This first one, currently connected Mav. Ignore the typos for now. And this is all connected Mavs on multiple connection types. So the difference between these is this is currently connected Mav on the current port as the primary vehicle that you're currently talking to. If you were to use the mission planner menu up in the top right hand corner to select a different Mav, if you say we're connected to a quad and a rover, you would basically, this would change dynamically to what vehicle it is you were talking to. If you were to store an instance to this, then obviously it would be the vehicle that it initially connected to. So I wouldn't suggest storing this locally. I would always suggest accessing it via this method. And then this one here is basically a list of COM-ports. So this one here will actually be part of this COM-port. So in a swarming scenario, you would basically be able to do all those other things that we saw earlier. So if we wanted to do a mass do-arm, we could do this. The sysid, so we'll go a.sysid current, a.compid current, and then would basically go, we want to arm it. So what this would do is go through every COM-port. So if you had 5 RFD 900s connected to your laptop, it would go through all of those 5 RFD 900s and talk to the most directly connected vehicle. So the primary vehicle on that link. If you wanted to take this a step further, then you can actually do, so let's just comment out that code, a.mavs, mav list for each. Hang on, let me just go back a bit. So what this is doing, so for every COM-port, one COM-port can have multiple drones connected to it, and this mav list is a list of the drones connected to that port. So we can basically use this information to directly target specific drones on the port. So let's go B and then B dot. I'll just paste that previous code. And what we're going to do is we're going to go B arm, B B. And let me just check why that's actually erroring, because it doesn't like something here in the first place. A is an object. I think it's, let me get rid of that for starters. So this is one of those times where it's not 100% working like it should, but it is valid. So I need to confirm why that's not ambiguous match on the for each function. Xamarin Forms. Why is Xamarin Forms included in this? Okay, so it's not exactly going to plan. So let's go the dumb version. I'll create a class. I'll create a actual function. So it's now going to execute a function, and we'll just go the silly for each. So we'll go a.mavList, mav. So this is the more traditional way of doing it instead of using the lambda expressions I was using a second ago. And what we're going to do now is call this mav. Do mav state. Then sysID, and then okay. So what this would do, every COM port mission plan is connected to, that could be serial, TCP, UDP, doesn't matter. So if you had a TCP connection, a UDP connection, and a serial connection, it'll scan through all of those connections. And then for every mav on that port, it will send the ARM command to the mav. So basically, another way of doing this is I could actually change that to just A. Because we're sending the do ARM command out that physical connection, whether it be TCP, UDP, serial, the trick is so long as we're targeting the correct drone at the end of the link. So that's an example of how you would arm the drone, arm multiple drones all at once. There is an example of that in the mass option that we were talking about prior to the call yesterday. If you actually have a look, you'll see that this code here is very similar. So we're scanning through all the COM ports, picking the mav, and then we're do arming it. Now this code would actually technically fail in terms of if there was multiple mavs on the link, because it's always assuming there is only one mav on the link. So it would be sending it to the primary mav on that link. So this code technically has a little flaw in it in that respect, but it's at the same time, it's still an example of how to use basically doing do arm set mode again, a do command. That'll be a do command long, not a do command int. So we're doing a takeoff to 2 meters there. And then this one here is set guided mode waypoint. So basically we're just taking, as I showed before with the host flight data menu map position, we're taking that, converting it to an int, actually converting it to a int, yes, and then basically sending it to the drone as a guided mode waypoint. So, and it's equivalent to the fly-to command on current mission planner. So that's, I did sidetrack a little bit there. So now, back to the original intent of removing stuff from the menu. So here's the example that I was looking at earlier. What I'll do is I'll just copy and paste this into this demo. That way we can modify it without import types for pasted code, import types. Okay, so what we're going to do on the flight data GMAP control, so on the actual map control, we're going to basically begin invoke. So the reason for using a begin invoke loop is actually run from a background thread. So we need to basically marshal this call onto the user UI thread. If you've ever done any UI programming, pretty much everything, all UI interfaces like a single thread And this is how it would be done in C# and in this instance. So what we're doing here is we're basically going to flight data, we're getting the current instance of flight data. So that's a static reference to the current initialization of the flight data tab. And then we're going to get the context menu strip for the map. And then we're getting all the items from the context strip menu strip. So what that means is that's the right click menu, and that's all the items in the right click menu. And then what we're doing is we're getting the list, and then we're converting it to a list of tool strip items and to an array. Now, the reason why this part here is so complicated is modifying an array while you're enumerating over the array is a bad idea. So basically what we're doing is we're taking a static snapshot of the array prior to us editing the array, and then basically processing through the list so we can add, remove the elements as we want. So allow list. Now, where did I get this allow list from? So you'll see go to here, tool strip, menu item, fly to here, coord, trigger camera. So where I actually got this from is in the mission planner. So if we open flight data, so there's two ways to get it, is either to open the visual designer, and then so if I go back here, we're looking at the context menu strip map. So down here in the bottom, context menu strip map. So that is the menu we're currently looking at. Now, each one of these items in here obviously has the display name, fly to here, fly to out. But as part of that as well, I'll just turn on the properties view over here. Let's just make that, pin that over here. And you can see that it has a name. So we have the displayed to the user in the text, and then we actually have the element name, which is go to here tool strip menu item. So if I copy that and basically add it to this list here, that is what that first item already is in that list. So that's where that information came from. And if you wanted to get really crazy, again, so in basically this, all the user interface is WYSIWYG. So if I add a new item in this menu, like I can just test, I just added a new item to the menu, and its name is test tool strip menu item. And then obviously I know what that is. So, but all of this is automatically generated in terms of, so there's a .designer file, and this file is automatically generated. So if you were doing things like this, you need to use the visual editor to do it, is where I'm going with this. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to find that go to here tool strip menu that we found earlier. And here we go. We got the context menu strip map with the items. And so this is the initial bring up of that tool strip items. And this is everything that's being added. So, and these here are all the names of all the elements. So a real easy way to do this, instead of going through each item in this list here, writing down the name, copying and pasting, use the designer file. And basically we can just copy and paste all the friendly names much quicker. So if we wanted to do that, and then we can basically just copy and paste that into here and tidy it up for the names. The reason I'm not using the text label is for localization. If you were shipping to a client in another country and that text has been localized, then obviously searching via an English string would not function. Searching via this name will always work. So we've got an allow list. So they're the 4 items that I want to show. So go to here, fly to here, out, fly to coords, and trigger camera. So basically what we're doing is in the original item listing, if every item in the context menu, we're basically pulling it out, and then we're checking if any of these items are in the allow list. If it's in the allow list, we skip it. If it's not in the allow list, then we remove that item from the list. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to run it to show that it actually works. Oh, and you'll also notice I put this in loop. Technically, we could only really have to run this once, but I put it in loop so it runs every 3 seconds. Oh, yeah, actually 3 times per second. So basically it is make sure that the right-click context menu is always accurate. And that's basically the 4 items there, minimized to just that list of items that we just filtered it to. So if basically I could filter that, my next move would be to do the HUD menu as well. Move after that is to do the flight data, flight planner menu. Say I didn't want all these options. I wanted to remove the survey grid for whatever reason. I could remove any of these items here using the exact same method, just obviously directing it to this menu strip versus the other menu strip. So in terms of context, so the flight data, flight planner screen are instances. Basically, there is only one instance and they are always initialized. And then setup, config are basically dynamically created on each run. So they are basically recreated each time you click it, refresh all parameters and all other contexts. Simulation, again, is actually saved state, if I recall, and help is initialized each time as well. So basically, accessing the flight data.instance, flight planner.instance would be a way to access any of the members on this if you wanted to do that. So that's basically an example of that actually operating. To give you a rough idea of, I'll quickly show this one here, fence distance. So I already know there is flaws in this thing. So what this will do, it'll draw the fence distance. So normal bring up as per usual, we create a tool strip menu item. So in the previous example, we were removing a menu item. This time we're adding a tool strip menu item. So we're adding a draw fence distance to the flight data map menu. And we're adding a button on click event as well. So everything else, so button click. So I'm just gonna click on that and push F12 to go to the actual button click to see what it does. So we're creating a GMap overlay. So we're creating a map overlay and then we're adding it to the flight data GMap control as an overlay. It's visible, yes, it's visible. And then, oh, that's to invert the visibility of it. And then we're creating a bitmap, 400 pixels by 400 pixels. And then we're basically displaying it over the view area. And what this is going to be showing is there's a test code here, is it's actually going to be drawing a proximity fence to a fence with exclusion zones as a visual representation using a bitmap. So I won't go through all this code, lots of maths to basically do the inclusion. So you can see the fence circle inclusion, circle exclusion, again, circle, and then we've got also fence return points. So basically it's just processing a polygon fence and polygon vertex inclusion and exclusion zones. So what we'll do is we'll just actually, what we'll do is we're just going to actually disable that first plugin that we actually just did. I'm just going to run this at the moment. So I'll just re-execute this. Just waiting for it to compile after changing the plugins. So where this plugin currently fails is it is a render once plugin. It doesn't actually clear the state and render it again on the second view. So button click, we do actually do a little bit, but we don't do enough. So this plugin it was purely created as a demo, but there is obviously quite a few fixes we could still make it to actually make it a lot more dynamic and just work a lot cleaner. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to start up a simulation. Just do there. And what I'm just going to detach the debugger because it's going a little slow. So I'm just going to start up a multi-rotor as part of CIDL. And it's downloading the fence. So we've got this nice fence. We've got a couple of exclusion zones. We've got an exclusion circle. And so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to create a few more exclusion circles. So let's put one here, 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 here. And this one here, 25, I'm going to make 50 meters. That looks a lot more appropriate. We're just going to write that to the vehicle. I'm going to go back to flight data, zoom out a bit, right click. And that's what I was hoping wouldn't happen. Excuse me a second. Our plugin from the previous example is still actually running, which means
it's deleting your menu items.
yes, exactly.
Doing its job.
Yeah.
Being a good little plugin.
Exactly. A little bit too well for for what I was trying to illustrate. Yeah, so like I said, it filters, instead of being a look to remove items, it's a list of only inclusion items. So everything else that shouldn't be in that list gets removed, and including the menu that I'm trying to use myself. So debug, so just detach, skip download.
You could just Control P and disable that other plugin, couldn't you?
Admittedly, yes, I could have. I ended up just changing code to do it anyway. So
yep. I only learned about Control P yesterday.
Exactly.
Got to show off my new knowledge.
Yep, exactly. The funny thing is last year's dev talk, I talked about it as well.
Yeah, gotta remember it, you know.
Yeah. There's a lot that goes on in a year.
Yeah, that's right.
And
remember what I had for breakfast.
Yeah, indeed. I think we all get like that sometimes. So that didn't exactly go as planned on the first take. So I'm just going again. Okay, simulator started, simulator's connecting. Wait for it to download MavFTP, and then it'll be pulling the fence as well. And then I'll zoom out, then we'll right click, and then we'll go, we got the full menu now, and then we'll draw fence distance. Okay, so as you can see, it's very pixelated because we only had 400 by 400 pixels, but it's actually showing the transition and basically keep out zones. So it renders it as it was when I clicked that button. The way to complete this plugin would be to add something to the loop to check if the center of the map has moved and actually regenerate this so it could visually demonstrate the other polygons. So I'll just disable it again, and then let's bring it back. And you can see that it's doing the right thing there. So basically we've got two exclusion zones there, a funny exclusion zone and an exclusion circle there. And then we've got our big inclusion circle, inclusion fence on the outside. So it basically deals with overlapping polygons and other. So I'll just disable that and re-enable that. And you can see basically the buffer margins it puts around things. So it's purely as a demo, like it could be expanded to make look a lot prettier, of course, but it's just a demonstration of what plugins can do if you wanted to do something a little bit more advanced. So yeah, this is just literally taking the fence downloaded from the autopilot and rendering it as a graphic to show where the buffer zone and distance from the buffer zones and other things like that. So that was one of the examples. So that was example number 3. Obviously, there's a lot of maths involved in that one, but there is currently 17 examples. LEDs, so basically control a LED. So all what this one does is, again, if you were to look in the right-click menu, we got LED and red, green, blue, white, black, rainbow. So if you wanted to know what they do, red sends a Mavlink LED control message with the color 25500, which in this case is red, and it sends the packet to the sysid 11. And then same for green, blue, and then let's look at the complex one, the rainbow. So what does rainbow do? It basically initializes a value from 0 to 1, increases by 0.005, converts the rainbow, that floating point number, to a color, and then sends that color with a delay of 50 milliseconds between each thing. So basically just generating a rainbow and sending it. Actual functional usefulness of this, I don't know, but it's a bling cool factor, and you can make hardware change pretty colors. So yeah, there's and then there's a few other things as well. So this forwarding, this is a good one. I know Tridge you will like. It's probably not directed specifically at you, but I had someone ask, they wanted forwarding permanently enabled, and that's what basically this plugin is doing. So currently it's defaulted because the init is returning false. what it is actually doing is it's setting up the Mavlink mirror stream to a TCP serial port 1445. So it's actually setting up a TCP listener as a mirror stream on the local machine. So basically, it would take all connections on port TCP 1445 on localhost. Well, actually, technically, it binds to all interfaces. So localhost and whatever your machine IP is, Wi-Fi IP is, whatever it is, and basically will give you access to the Mavlink data stream via TCP on the local machine. If you wanted to, obviously, you could turn this around the other way and have it always connecting externally via UDP. This example doesn't show that. It wasn't the request from the client that we had, but it's just an example of how you could do this. And because it's a plugin, it's basically always running. It was just a method of doing that. And then another example, can log file. So can log extract. So what this actually does is opens a can file. So it opens a SLCan can file, which is just raw text file, and then basically extracts and reads all that code, reads all the frames, and then basically outputs the frame as a 2 JSON file. So it's just a method of basically debugging can frames. And then one other useful thing is can RTCM. So can RTCM, if you were, say you had a RTK GPS on the CAN bus, you were monitoring the CAN bus with all the data files. So what this will do is it'll take a CAN RTCM file and pull out the RTCM data from the CAN packets. So it's just a quick plugin purely as a tool to get a CAN data log, RTCM data from that. There's a few other silly little plugins like that as well, where it's purely just to extract data from a log for specific use. Like the data flash log file example could have been done like this via a plugin, basically just ask to specify, like you could basically just open file dialog, specify a data flash log, process the data flash log, ask where you want to save the files, and you could be saving the storage file via a plugin as an example. Just a quick and easy plugin, and as you can see, it's fairly to do that, it's fairly easy. This is processing like opening the file, processing CAN packets, and then looking for a specific message, which is the UAV CAN equipment GNS RTCM stream, and then basically just saving that raw data to a file. So just a quick way of processing that file, and yeah. So that's there's plenty of other options as well, HUD on and off, basically display headings. What this one does, basically you'll see HUD items. If I turn off heading, if I turn off speed, if I turn off alt, if I turn off connection, if I turn off. So that's what that plugin I just showed you a second ago is what does this. Purely all it does is sets bool values on the HUD, and you can basically roll pitch. There we go, quite a boring HUD right now. And so what's providing this is a plugin, and that plugin is example 9, HUD on and off. So all it's doing is there's the mapping between the display name and the bool value on the HUD item, and then it's really just a case of adding a menu. When the item checked change, it clicks, it either adds it or removes, sets the value to true or sets the value to false, and the HUD takes care of it in terms of rendering it. So yeah, map icon description, again, only thing this does, again, adds a menu item here. As you can see at the moment, we've got 0 meters, 0 meters a second, ID 1, sats 10, HDOP. That plugin does this, change icon description. So let's change that to that, hello world, click OK, and all things going well, which it's going to make a liar of. There we go, makes a liar of me. So now we've basically changed the description on that icon. And again, that is a plugin. So there's the default text, out unit, airspeed, speed unit, system ID, sat count, GPS HDOP, and battery voltage. That can be changed to whatever you want, and another example of a plugin and how it can be used to modify visual elements inside Mission Planner. And I think that's probably it for me at this point in time. That's all my slides, only 4, so nice, quick and easy.
Fantastic. Thank you, Michael. That was really, really fascinating. And I hope to be writing my first plugin shortly.
Yes,
so
hopefully
many
my
thanks for, I'm sorry?
instructional video was enough to, there's quite a few examples, but yeah, if you do have any issues, just let me know.